choose a side.
Right.
I'm like, I like neutrality.
I like it in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Literally.
I know.
You know, I mean,
yeah,
I'm a middle child. Like, you know, that's very much my energy is to, like, kind of find a centered approach.
For sure.
But at the same time, you know, it's like, what is that voice in me that's like, why don't you just cut out the poisons?
Is it yours?
At the end of the time, sure.
But, I think there's a lot to be said about environment, too.
Hey, thanks for tuning in for the ReMinders podcast. This episode was recorded last August. In fact, the same day that I recorded the episode with Stephen Steinway. I think that was episode 13 or 14. And we decided not to release this right away. Lacinda had just returned to Cincinnati from going to a rainbow gathering and then spending about a month at Sage Valley, this property out in Indiana that is essentially a off-grid community, a budding off-grid community. And she was also preparing to move to Hawaii for the winter. That didn't end up happening. I'll let her cue us in on the details another time. But we decided to revisit this episode, and I listened just a couple days ago, and it's really great. It's probably one of my favorites, honestly. It's just a joy to talk to, and it tells a little bit about her experience at Sage Valley, living in community, and it's just generally a throwback to summer vibes. You can hear the cicadas singing in the background, and you can see us sweating it out on my back balcony. I guess pretty fitting for the schizophrenic weather patterns we've been having here, at least in Cincinnati. It snowed, and now it's feeling like spring, and I'm sure it'll snow again. And yeah, so I feel bad for the animal life and plants that are starting to bud and probably getting their migration patterns all out of whack. But anyway, speaking of summer vibes, in the background you hear an instrumental version of a unreleased song of mine called Palm. It's an intro track to the Phase 2 of the Fate Weaving EP series / album, which will likely be released under my new band name. We'll get into that another time. So now that track is fading, let's take a moment to tune into a little meditation, because why not? So wherever you are, just come back to yourself. I know I can use this grounding and melting into the moment. Apparently 3/4 of a cup of coffee is too much for me these days. So let's just notice our natural breathing. If you can feel into your heartbeat, feel the pulsing sensation of what it feels like to be you today. And simply notice. Just allow yourself to come into a more relaxed state of being. This is our natural state after all. It can be so fruitful to engage in these mindfulness practices to actively remind our body of how good it can feel to be here, as well as how good it can feel to bear witness to and allow and accept the less than savory and pleasant emotions that may be held and or processing through our body in a given moment as well. To remind ourselves of our resilience, to find the middle ground between chasing and doing and action and the passive receptivity of relaxation and rest. Let's return to this awareness, this self-awareness, and witnessing mode as often as we can throughout this podcast and throughout the rest of our day. Thank you for listening. Brightens up my life. And
you feel that way?
Just like that.
When did you get those?
At Pyro.
Oh, that's right. They suit you.
It was like a big decision as to what the sunglasses were going to be.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause I didn't have any sunglasses getting to Pyro. And so we like spent quite a bit of time looking for some.
Yeah.
And these were the only ones that like didn't suck.
Okay.
And I finally bought them and put them on. I'm like, these make things brighter.
Yay!
But no, it does like shade the UV a little bit,
That's
but
good.
it definitely, everything looks yellow. It's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I might want to get some.
I've had a few people compliment me on the round shades.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm still getting used to the way I look. Like, if I
Yeah.
do ever catch myself in the mirror
Right.
with these on, I'm like, ugh, kind of weird.
I like it.
But they're cool on the inside, so it's whatever.
That's what matters. How
Yeah.
you see.
And
Not
they've
what
lasted
you look like.
for like a full month.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's
they
the
might
thing
be
with
keepers.
sunglasses. I gave up sunglasses so long ago. I
Really?
read one thing on the interwebs once that said that the way your body processes the hormone D that comes from the sun, it starts with your retina.
Okay.
And so sunglasses are
That
like
does
one of the
make
big things
sense.
that we're not supposed to listen to. The push for sunglasses.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but yellow
I
seems
can,
like-
I can believe that.
Yeah.
I saw a video. Anytime you hear me say I saw a video, it's probably code for I was on TikTok.
Got it.
And someone was talking about utilizing the they had a word for it, but when the sun is setting or rising, horizontal sunlight maybe is the
Oh,
phrase they used.
okay.
I'm not sure. But basically, kind of what you're getting at, that it gets into our eyes and really wakes us up.
Interesting.
And like helps regulate our circadian
That makes
rhythm
sense.
and everything.
That makes total sense. to
But
me.
that it kind of needs to be that sunrise for it to be energizing and alerting
Right.
to wake you up.
I mean,
If
that
you-
really resonates.
If
yeah.
you, like me, roll out of bed at 9:30 and like maybe we'll go outside at 10 or
Right,
10:30,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
Like, of course the sun's always good for you.
Yeah.
You know? Unless
That's
you're
true.
getting too baked in the sun,
Yeah,
you know?
right.
That definitely sort of
The
happened to me a little bit over the weekend.
Did
I
it?
was by like 5 on Saturday. I was like, man, I'm starting to get like maybe a little concerned about getting sun bleached. Just like energetically.
Yeah.
Like I felt
Too
it
much.
draining on
Yeah.
me. But then the sun started going down. I was like, the temperature immediately dropped
Right.
like, to a very comfortable
Yeah.
degree. And I was talking to someone. They're like, no, you're going to be tan tomorrow. Like, you're good. I was like, okay, cool.
Okay, thanks.
And then I look in the mirror, I'm like, I look so red. But no, I think they're right. I mean, first of all, like it was positive imagining, and I appreciate
right.
that. You
right.
know?
Yeah, we need that.
Yeah.
That's
On the other
true.
hand, I think they're right. Like it wasn't the like hue of pink that you know you're gonna
Yeah.
have like
right.
sunburn.
It hurts.
Yeah.
when it's coming,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it wasn't really hurting. It was just I was just so aware that my
Right.
skin had been in the sun
Yeah.
so long.
For sure.
But no, the next day it was fine.
That's good.
And it's kind of funny, like, honestly, on this pretty similar conversation of, like, sunglasses and, like, the way the sun is interacting with our eyes and our body. When I was talking to Ella on the podcast, she was talking, I'm pretty sure it was on the podcast, she was talking about how she doesn't use, sunscreen and how she feels like that really it's the fear of these things that kind of brings them about. Like,
Yeah.
I've talked about that with, like, mosquitoes before,
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure there's a million factors to everything, but like
Yeah.
Kara gets eaten up.
Does
It's a
she?
thing for her. Like she
Yeah.
doesn't like the bugs on her,
Interesting.
and they fuck with her.
Yeah.
Me, I'm like, I mean, of course, like if they are messing with me, I don't enjoy it.
Right.
But
Like you're aware
maybe
of
it's
that.
my blood type or,
Right. All the
good luck.
factors.
but
Yeah.
they don't really mess with me too much.
So that's one of the most intense parts of the experience that we endured at Sage Valley was the bugs.
Yeah.
And I knew that was a part of the thing I was going to have to face for sure. And I 100% agree that there is some layer of it that is energetic.
Yeah.
And carrying a fear about it definitely, I think, attracts them.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
so. But that's a good way of putting it, though. It's one layer.
Yeah.
It's not this or
Right.
that.
Because
you
I
know?
think that it might be true about blood types, maybe. And standing water somewhere that brings mosquitoes
Right.
into your
Yeah,
environment, stuff like
exactly.
that.
And if you're the only person there, they're going to be going
Right,
for you. If
right.
there's a couple people, maybe they smell out
Yeah.
the one that's,
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
It's weird.
Yeah,
like,
it
it'll just be
is.
me and Kara, and she's getting eaten up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you freaking out about?
What's the problem? That's funny. There was a woman who came for summer camp who had 2 really beautiful children. She's actually bringing them to see Nora for her birthday party, which is so awesome. Nora's gonna like lose her mind. Like one of the first things that she wanted to contribute, because a lot of people that came had the intention to volunteer for the summer camp. And I saw it unfold in many people, what do I do? No one's telling me what to do. I don't know, what should I do? And they would ask me, what do you think I should do?
Yeah.
So she found this space eventually where she wanted to help care for the land. And so she got her gloves that she brought, and she started pulling some weeds and stuff. And I could see like this tinge of, that's interesting, kind of like judgments from other people. And I just kind of like, witnessed what was going on. And she expressed often that she was scared of ticks, that she really wanted to bring down like certain grass levels and certain parts of the play area that maybe would, bring a tick to her children's skin. The
Valid
friend,
concern for sure.
yeah. And then there was a friend that she had that like kicked down a hornet's nest. Anyway, she went so far as to like pulling these plants out of the ground where nobody knew there was a yellow jacket nest. And so she ended up getting like all these yellow jackets stuck in her clothes. And at the very same time, her son stepped on a piece of glass.
Oh, no.
Her daughter, they left for to celebrate their dad's birthday and came back several days later to do more of the summer camp. And while they were gone, they believe she came in, like she had a Lyme situation. She had been bitten by a tick, and so she ended up on antibiotics for that.
Oh my God.
And there was definitely like this vocalized fear of all of these things that she suddenly was starting to experience in this rapid succession. And like, I will say for sure that I had this big fear of ticks when we got there, and I saw them all the time. They were everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, it was really intense for a while, and I don't know when or how the fear subsided, but eventually it just did.
Really?
Like I just started to accept that, well, they live here.
Yeah.
And I would watch the people around me like find one and burn it, and that made me feel weird, even though we don't want to share them with other people or throw them where someone's going to walk or whatever.
True.
But it just felt sticky to me to like burn a bug. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and I hadn't really felt that way before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure where the transition period was, but eventually the fear subsided, and then there were no more ticks. So that's interesting for sure.
That is interesting. I've been thinking a lot about that in particular, like ticks in particular.
Really?
Because Jessa Reed got bit by a tick in 2020.
Okay.
And then like twice again, like after going through this like year-long recovery, whatever. And then like a few months ago, she got bit again and stuff. So like people were that was kind of on the consciousness of, this event that I went to. That was kind of like a gathering in honor of Jessa Reed.
Yeah.
And it didn't really cross my mind too much.
Interesting.
Because I had definitely thought about it a lot when we were at Sage Valley, because people were, kind of like
talking about ticks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Giving the cautionary heads up. And, my someone that I lived with in Northside, one of my landlords, it was her house that I lived in, like she had Lyme disease, and it really affected her in a really negative way. And, so I had like a first or secondhand like knowledge of how bad that illness can be and how it can affect your life. So, because me, like I'm like, don't think about negative stuff, don't bring it towards you. But like, when you hear more stories, actual people who have actually gone through these things. It's a little harder just to like throw it
away. Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, so you and I have talked a lot about importance levels and stuff before. So I've done a decent amount of work of trying to lower my importance around that particular thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, going off the Jessa Reed story about it, like her partner, he's more used to living like in rural areas and whatnot. They live in Tennessee, and like he'll have ticks on him like multiple times a week, like maybe even get bit and stuff. And it just doesn't affect him.
Funny.
So it is interesting,
It is.
the connection between our expectations of things and our fear about things versus our acceptance and our ignorance. Sometimes ignorance is healthy.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
What's that
Taboo to
saying?
say.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Goat, the guy that lives on the bus, because, I was expressing all this fear when we first got there because I was pulling ticks off of Nora left and right, and I'd feel, there's something about the way they crawl where they're pretty easy to feel. So maybe that was the beginning of my transition. Like, okay, well, I'm getting them all.
Gotcha.
They're not getting to me. They're not getting into her skin. They're not biting. I can see them. They're very big.
Yeah.
Some of them are very small, but we didn't see any of those as far as I know. But yeah, I was talking to Goat about it because for a while it was just us, and he talked about how there's a certain bioderm that you create when you're not showering all the time, using soap all the time, that maybe has a certain effect on the I don't know, bugs, the dirty guy, or you're one with nature at that point, and so they're just less interested in this outside source of something.
Really?
Yeah, it was a really
That is
interesting
so
take on
interesting.
it. Yeah, because he didn't have any issues with ticks, and he's been living there since the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's reminding me of something that I can't put my finger on. But I feel like this has been coming up in conversation recently too. I can't really remember. I can't grab the thread, but it feels like, literally just however much we try to protect ourselves from nature, it's almost that we're doing the opposite.
Yeah, we're challenging it or
ways.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or that we're actually leaving ourselves more susceptible.
Yeah.
By, not having strong immune systems.
Right.
From actually being immersed.
Right.
With the land versus, being protected from the land.
So the skin is the largest part of the immune system. It's the first barrier to all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting idea to combine with this idea of a bioderm film that we're building if we're sweating and not washing it off or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, wild.
That's wild. So Nora got chickenpox, eh?
I thought so.
You thought so?
I did think so. So so this is
clear
definitely in
up?
alignment with this. No, she's still in the thick of what she's got going on. So it's part of the reason that we came back when we did. I probably would have stayed a lot longer, if I'm being honest. She was suffering quite a bit. And when it first started happening, it occurred to me as a bunch of mosquitoes. If I'm being totally transparent, I was very much about the bug spray, right? When we first got there, all the fear, no. And being in the cabin itself, it wasn't totally secluded from the outside. There were lots of cracks and holes, and living with lots of spiders that we just got to know and love, and it was fine. Eventually, it was fine. And really, it was great. But toward the end,
no, really, we loved.
No,
the
really, it
spiders.
was fine.
It was not an issue.
So it was very educational. That's where I started to hang my hat on. Okay, I love you. Thank you for being here, because Nora would wake up and see a spider wrapping its food, and then we got to talk about that, and Nora got to, and I want to give her that neutrality about nature. I don't want to, when I see a giant wolf spider, I have things going on inside my body. She's like, look, Mom, look how cool that is. Hi, spider. And I'm
oh my God.
Hi, spider. We're going to go now. You go back to bed, Spidey.
Have a good day.
Right. See you later or not. Yeah, spiders is still a thing for me.
Yeah.
I'll get to that.
Okay.
So, so these bumps started arising, and I thought, okay, these pesky mosquitoes. Then I thought, chiggers. Chiggers are really, really small. She hadn't worn shoes almost the entire time we were there. Some of the hotter days she had shorts on. Most of the time she was wearing pants. There were several days during summer camp that it was so hot. There was a slip and slide and a bikini thing.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, it's just a part of the experience. She's going to be itchy. So we went and got all the things I could think to get. We tried all the oils first, lemongrass from head to toe. Anything I could think of to ward them off. I think tea tree is the thing they hate the most.
Yeah.
And so I started putting it around her ankles and stuff. And then I got really lax, out of nowhere. I stopped using all the bug sprays and the things, and then she started to get the more bumps. And so we just kept an eye on it, and they seemed to have a stage. So Kinsey came to me one morning and said, so I was with this person and that person. This person had shingles. Their son got chickenpox from that. That was a month ago. Then we learned that the incubation period, if you come into contact with that, would be about 21 to 30 days. So we were like, and she brought this to me because her daughter started having spots on her face that looked similar to the way it was starting with Nora. So a couple days I was like, oh my gosh. And in this naturally minded, holistic living lifestyle, there's and Nora's not vaccinated, right? Not for the chickenpox at least. She got the first 3 when she was young, and then we decided not to do anymore.
Gotcha.
I was vaccinated for the chickenpox, so then I thought that made sense why I wasn't getting any bumps, if that's an effective way to keep it out of my system.
Yeah.
But Maybelle, the girl that was having the spots, she hadn't been vaccinated. So we just went through this whole list of real possibility, and I started to celebrate. If you get chickenpox in the wild without being induced by a vaccine, way more likely to build a lifelong immunity to that, and then you don't have the possibility of shingles as an adult or chickenpox as an adult, which apparently is like the worst thing.
Oh yeah.
So I started to celebrate, and we joked about like having a chickenpox camp out, and like to weed out the people that aren't really in alignment with this way of thinking. And we didn't do that, but it was a funny joke for a while. So I hung my hat on that. I was like, yeah, this is what's happening for sure. Because she a week or two before that spiked a fever out of nowhere, and I was like, okay, this makes sense. This progression of things makes sense. I connected it all together, and then Maze Bell's spots went away, and we were like, okay, so that's not it. So I took her to see a holistic healthcare practitioner, and she said that very likely it was a combination of chiggers, mosquitoes, and poison ivy.
Oh, wow.
And then I started to just watch her and her activities for the day, and she definitely was going to this one spot to pee right outside the cabin that had a bunch of poison ivy next to it. And, she and I had several conversations. It was one of those things, like, are we going to really focus on the poison ivy that's around us? We're going to be aware, but are we really going to talk about it every day? Are we going to bring more of that fear into it or not? And Kinsey and her family don't have reactions to poison ivy, so they, don't think about it. And I loved that energy, right? Anyhow, so that's where we landed with that. And once we got back to Cincinnati, she saw a regular pediatrician who practices Western medicine, and we collected to find a course of treatment that's really supportive to what she's going through right now. In the end, I think that she has really sensitive skin, and I've learned that the first exposure to poison ivy, if you are in fact allergic, which is most people, can be really extreme. So she's feeling better. She's a bit uncomfortable, but she and herself is great. She's wild, happy. Yeah, she's good.
Gotcha.
She's good.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you got some closure on what that might be, 'cause that can be rabbit holes of anxiety
For
when
sure.
you start to see multiple symptoms.
Yeah.
And multiple things that it could be.
Right.
But,
yeah, and that was definitely uncomfortable, just not knowing.
Yeah.
Which was the test in it, to just be okay with not knowing for as long as I could be okay with that.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely played a part in us coming back to find some extra support for her.
Yeah, that actually kind of brings me back to what we were talking about before I had to turn my computer on. You were talking about balance and logistics of people playing their roles and not having, all of the responsibility of one sector going on just one or two people or whatnot. I just think that's a really important thing or just a very real and necessary thing to attend to when we're talking about intentional living.
For sure.
Especially off-grid living, taking the power into our own hands as to how do we embody the infrastructure of our community and of our society, the way that we, pay taxes.
Right.
And we expect that roads will be there. We expect that we will have access to healthcare. And I mean, that's obviously a whole storm of a black hole. I mean, a rabbit hole.
Rabbit.
Maybe a black hole. Anyway, but there are structures in place, whether we like them or could see more fluid ways of them operating. They are there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just, like I said, I am really interested to see specifically how that operates in Hawaii and just, I think it's again, just something that we need to really think about because, we've heard our friends talk about, it'd be great if we all lived on some land together and stuff.
Like land, and
that's a common hippie dream to have, and I'm not putting that down, obviously, but the very real aspects of that, how are we going to cohabitate any sort of environment, and how do the roles get broken up, and even in terms of thinking about how we could evolve mainstream society, how can we operate in ways that all of the nitty gritty, dirty work jobs are being done, but in a way that feels fair and flow, and balance, So obviously,
I think it's tricky to be attached to the idea that it's always going to flow and there's not going to be any sticky parts or moments of conflict.
Sure.
There definitely is always going to be something to grow through, especially when you're living with that many people,
No doubt.
And I think that integrating that kind of mindset into a more normal societal way of living is like having a garden in your backyard. starting with something like that, you start to get really familiar with the work that goes into the food that you're eating, as an example. So it's little things that you don't really think are contributing to this bigger idea, but they definitely are. They definitely are. I also think it's important to allow yourself to expand. Like once I found these roles, and maybe it's that point of discomfort of feeling like it's all on your shoulders, is when you can be called to explore something else. Not that you want to neglect the thing that maybe you took on to begin with, but if you're expressing, hey, I need help with this, you can then, like, I really enjoyed learning about what was going on around me, and I felt very comfortable to ask questions and get involved in things that I hadn't been involved in before. Like, I felt like I was there to learn more.
Yeah.
And so that's an aspect of it to it for sure. Like, being able to flow from one job or role to another and offer like this total support, to the people and the environment around you.
Totally. That was actually something that came up from the weekend, because, we're on a Discord server, everyone that went to the camp out and stuff, and they're talking about doing like an integration meetup online, like Zoom calls in the coming weeks, and just have a space for people to talk about the things that came up and things that we're growing through and stuff like that. Yeah. And so one thing that someone brought up, my friend Kate, that I had a really beautiful conversation with, she brought up on the Discord, something that really is helpful in these types of communities that are, trying to be conscious and not turn into a hierarchy or dare say a cult, is like the rotating leadership.
Yeah.
Allowing space for, like, if someone feels called to lead a certain thing, to do that.
Right.
And to have this shared power in that sense. And that feels really empowering. That feels like a natural flow rather than it, I mean, the king of a community, that pretty weird.
Yeah, it is.
Weird,
yeah, I don't want to go to that community.
Yeah. I've flirted with the idea that, like, maybe there was something to monarchies in the sense that, like, at least, like, there was a structure and people, like, knew where they stood.
Yeah.
Which I feel almost a little cringy saying, but you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, there's a certain, like, level of comfort when you know what your place is, but that's really easy to get stuck into.
Yeah.
And I think that leaning into a more off-grid, community-based, whatever you want to call it, lifestyle, away from this societal norm that we're in right now, I think that's part of that is, not being so stuck where you are.
Right.
Not that you don't have or are born with a certain skill set that's beneficial to your community or to yourself.
Right.
Like, I still feel that you should do what you feel called to do and express, the skill sets that you have. But, like I said, being open to exploring other parts of it too. Having that shared responsibility is everything. So I found a lot of my time was spent hanging out with the kids, while somebody else, a parent, would need to go and do something else, like reorganize the tool shed or paint the tools in a color code so the kids didn't play with the red ones. And like, it's all about really just flowing through the space and paying attention, being aware about what's going on around you.
Yeah.
For sure.
Totally.
So I get what you're saying. Having that structure in place can be beneficial, but also allowing that balance, allowing that the ability to, like, the wiggle room.
For it to fluctuate.
Yeah.
Where there is still some sort of, like, organic order or structure, templates that are flowing.
Yes, they're
and
alive.
of course, to be clear, like, I don't mean to romanticize, days of old, medieval, like, you might know where you stand, but, like, your quality of life, obviously I recognize the inequity and everything, but, like, I'm just shining a light at how overwhelming life can be in our sort of normal mainstream existence of, where we feel like we're in a democracy, we feel like we have some sort of power, but, and we could argue to what degree that is real or not, or in what sectors our power truly lies. But I think it's just easy to get overwhelmed with the whole gamut of possibility that, of course not everyone feels that privilege to have access to. I could be anything, but I think you get what I'm getting at.
I do. I
and
totally
there's so
do.
many stories to tune into. I think a lot of people feel ungrounded and overwhelmed by the sheer mass and volume of information and possible life paths. Whereas, if you grow up as a bard in a bard's family, you grew up in a blacksmith family,
That's what
whatever.
you do.
Like, you kind of had your path. And
Yeah.
and it wasn't so much, I mean, again, I don't know why I'm speaking like I actually know how it was.
We have an idea.
But I feel like it wasn't so much like, I don't feel like there was resentment. Because there's residue of that even in, American culture, where, you think of like, just people that are more connected to like small business, family business mentality, where it's like, you'd feel proud to carry on your father's work or whatever it may be, And I think it was in the dawn of you can be anything that resentment started to pop up. Like, oh, I don't want to carry out your stupid business. I want to be a rock star or whatever, or a basketball player, like now we've like got this whole different, anyway, that's a huge other conversation we don't have to go that deep into. But
no, I'm feeling the way that it's flowing. I mean, there's so much to that. And like I was saying, when we first arrived, I was feeling really ungrounded. Like, what do I do here?
Right.
Like, what am I going to be useful for? But it was such an internal process for me. And I probably could have like leaned outward and said, hey, I'm struggling with like where I fit, and asked for some kind of direction. But yeah, man, what
Seems
an
like
experience.
It unfolded
oh yeah, it did. For sure. This makes me think of the patterns are so intricate. It makes me think of like, I've had lots of conversations in the last month or so about food, which, as you know, has been like a whole thing in my life with Nora, and wanting to raise her in the healthiest way possible and give her this really great foundation for healthy eating and how to nourish her body. And we talked a lot about what we think is true about the olden days, and how, here's what's for dinner. And how there wasn't a lot of conversation around that, with the children or the wife or anybody. Like they just made the food that they had access to, and then everyone ate it. And there was no resentment. There was no, I don't want that. I mean, maybe there was. I don't know. I wasn't there. But largely speaking, I'm imagining that it was just what it was, which just is relating to, you're the son of a blacksmith. And so that's what happens next. There is a certain comfort in that for sure. Now we have this myriad of like, bagged food and all these options, all these things to choose from. So Nora, when she wakes up in the morning, she gets to tell me what she wants to eat, which has a certain beauty to it too.
Sure.
But I get what you're saying. It is really overwhelming. Where do you go? What do you choose?
I feel like, humanity is maybe in a constant state of not limbo, but a liminal boundary between like heaven and hell, to put it in terms that I don't even truly like resonate with. But of like we're constantly like moving towards like having like pure freedom and creativity, kind of like the singularity type of mentality, where like we can create, the creator and the creation become one yet again, right? Consciously. There was never a separation, of course, but we're playing this game of forgetting, right? Yeah. And the land of duality. And so it's like there's beauty, like you said, to having all these choices. And there's sum it down to, every light has a shadow. Right. That's what it comes down to.
There are two sides to it all.
So, when it comes to food, like, we have like, now we have health food.
Yeah.
How insane. And we have like glam food.
Right.
Or like junk food.
Yeah.
And like we all want junk food. Like like that's like, you know what I mean? It's weird. It's weird. So weird. So you gotta like,
weird.
And then you, as like a human growing in the society, like, I'll speak for myself as a child, like we ate just normal mainstream fruity pebbles. Like now I'd consider that like glam food. I mean, I literally just made up that term, but you know what I mean? Where it's like, it feels like breakfast. Yeah. But really it's just sugar in a bowl.
Right. Right. Yeah. And, glamorous.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Glamorous to the tongue and the brain, and not so much for the rest of the body.
Right.
Yes. But point being, was there a point? Oh, so growing up, it's like kind of unraveling and like taking stock of my attachment to these things, and like, what do I really want to nourish my body with, and coming to clarity that like what's normal to feed ourselves with isn't always very nourishing. Right. Right. And so anyway, I think part of your point too is how adaptive we truly are as humans.
So true.
If you just roll the tape back 500 years, like all these different human tribes having very different diets,
Right.
and all surviving
Yeah.
and thriving,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Of course, not
I
everywhere. There was
imagine.
famine, and of
Right.
course, there's always shadow. But
Yeah.
and that's a beautiful aspect of humanity, is that we can eat processed, literally just drug food. That's what it should be called,
Drug
food,
food.
not junk food. It's drug
Drug
food.
food.
You eat it because it gets you off for a second,
Right,
and
right.
then you're needing more, and the
Yeah.
withdrawal ensues. And anyway, that's a whole disgusting aspect of humanity right now, but like it needs to be acknowledged because it's honestly like prevalent.
I went to a Mexican restaurant with my mom yesterday. It was quite an experience. I hadn't been in a restaurant in some time.
Yeah.
Sounds really weird to say that, like that's a whole thing, but it was. It was. Living in the woods, sitting down at a El Rancho Grande. It was like
Right.
two totally. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
the waiter really pressured us to order margaritas.
Interesting.
And it was really interesting because he asked like 3 different times within like 5 seconds. And my mom's response was, "Well, I have to drive. We have somewhere to be next, so you can't
Yeah.
drink and drive." And then I just clammed up. But after he left, I was like all fired up, like, "What's wrong with these people? Like, why are they pushing this poison?" And all this stuff. And yeah, it's just, that is something that I thought about for a really long time after that interaction, like what could it have done in his life? Maybe even my mom's interjection or her like semi-honest response. She doesn't drink, I wanted her to say that. I don't drink. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like it's bad for your body. Like, just stop with your madness.
Yeah.
But even her suggestion that like encouraging alcohol consumption before getting back in a car is really not okay.
Yeah.
And I appreciate, having the space to air certain parts of the way we're living out. Because it is real yucky.
It is. And obviously, like, he wasn't trying to, like, make sure you're having a good time with, a drug of choice.
Right.
Like, he's working a job.
Yeah.
He knows that.
High alcohol sales, bigger
that's
tips.
the culture. Yeah, of servers is, what you just said.
Yeah, I've lived it.
Hire
I've
big.
pushed it myself. Are you sure you don't want another? That was me. I did
Right.
it,
Bigger bill, bigger tips.
Yeah, for sure.
Same thing happened to me like a week or two ago. We went to some burger joint, which we, rarely, we hadn't been to that place in years. And, I ordered a beer just for whatever reason. And then she's like, "You want another?" And I was like, "No, I'm good." And then she came back like later and she's like, "You sure you don't want another?" I'm like, "Positive."
It's so funny, isn't
Yeah.
it? And I do appreciate that we all have the freedom to choose and experiment with certain things. Like beer specifically, there's a medicinal flavor of hops, like in the body and the calming method and all that. I don't have any judgments about it, but there was something about the way he was about it. It just really hit me the wrong way.
Well, just because it is so normal.
Yeah.
Right. It's so normal.
And then like he
go
seemed
into-
mad even.
Yeah, that's the
know?
weird part. Yeah, totally. And then you feel weird about.
Right.
Yeah, I know. Like, it's down to just kind of what we talked about, like, when we were doing the paint pours. We were talking about, like, deciding whether or not you want to be one of the people that are choosing to do things that are countercultural.
Right. Yeah.
And like, you posed a question in that we never truly like got to the bottom of. You were like, what is the discrepancy between saying that alcohol or refined sugar is like essentially, I'll say, acidic to the body.
Yeah, that's that. Yes, that.
Arguably poison.
Right. Well, we'll just go for acidic.
Is the word that we were using last time.
Yeah. I like that though.
But
That's
clearly
true.
it is clearly highly acidic,
Yeah.
which we all know leads to illness and cancer and whatever else. Imbalance.
Yeah.
What's the discrepancy between intellectually knowing that and then I just told you that, I had a drink the other week. And
Right.
like, Kara and I were talking about like doing this reset this year on the podcast and stuff. And like, her and I will break that down on the podcast. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but like we didn't get that far into that path.
Okay.
And, I've been back with flirting with alcohol and other things. And, I'm not like admitting this from a place of shame, but I guess there is a tiny little bit of it, especially since I like made a point to like publicly declare that we were like trying to, clarify and clear out things in our lives, energies in our lives. And that process was honestly a lot more tumultuous than than I wanted it to be. I can't
Yeah.
even say that than I expected.
Right.
You know, because I know.
Yeah.
Like I've tried this many times.
Mhm.
You know, so it's another push and pull and
Right.
ebb and flow and
Yeah.
whatever. And you know, part of it is just like it's summer. You know, like that goes back to what we were talking about on that last podcast. You know, that it's not wanting to be rigid.
Mm. Yeah.
That's what it kind of boils down for me.
Yeah.
But then I don't know, maybe that's lack of like clarity or lack of like choosing that mission.
Yeah.
I feel like there's part of me that is kind of calling to like choose a side.
Right.
I'm like, I like neutrality.
I like it in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally.
I know.
You know, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
and
the middle child. Like you know, that's
Right.
very much my energy is
Yeah.
to like kind of find a
the middle
centered
way,
approach.
for sure.
You know, and
I
actually,
get that.
I like that you said that. Like
Yeah.
that actually makes me feel more confident
Yeah.
about my
Good.
lifestyle.
Yeah, you
know?
should feel that way. Yeah. I
But
want
then-
that for you.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you know, it's like, what is that voice in me? That's like,
Mhm.
why don't you just cut?
Is
out
it
the poison?
yours?
At the end of the time, sure. But, yeah,
I think there's a lot to be
Good
said about
question.
environment too.
Yeah.
Because I know people that when they think about a hot summer day, they think about a juicy watermelon. You know, they don't think about a cold beer on a boat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I've watched myself in this way. Like I'm clearly on the other side of the spectrum at this very moment, and there are lots of filters for that, for alcohol specifically. All the things that have happened in my life and with the people closest to me, and alcohol. So I get that I'm on one side of the spectrum about it, and I wish for neutrality too. Anyway,
Yeah.
but having shifted, I've watched myself go from one on that pendulum, go from one extreme to the other. And so the hot summer days very recently spoke to me in the way of watermelons. I haven't had any cravings or thoughts about alcohol. Chocolate, that's still a thing for me.
Yeah.
Sugar, still a thing.
Totally.
But alcohol specifically hasn't been that way. And I remember a time where like, yes, I just justified it for myself, wanting to be in the middle, not wanting to be rigid. It tasted really refreshing. Like there were so many like things about it. But yeah, environmentally speaking, when you are trying to find one side or the other, what are you surrounded by?
Mhm.
You know, and like the voices that you're hearing, who do they belong to? I really think it matters, you know, where you are and how you spend your time, and then the balance in that too.
Absolutely.
Because now we're back in Cincinnati. We're back in the throes of this society. And Nora called me today to tell me about the ring pop she was eating. And I was like, cool, what color is it? Tell me it's not red. She's like, it's green. I'm like, cool. I hope you enjoy that. Have a great day, you know?
Yeah.
So it's both. It's always both.
Yeah.
It's always
Yeah.
both.
And you know, part of it too that I think this is worth representing is you know, the judgment is not serving us.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So when I find myself in judgment of myself for eating something with sugar in it or having a beer or whatever, you know, indulging in something that like maybe the monk version of myself wouldn't indulge in,
Right.
wouldn't feel compelled or interested
Right.
to
Right.
indulge
Yeah.
in, you know, to experience.
Yeah.
That judgment doesn't serve me, you know, and especially if I'm judging other people, that's not serving either one of us,
Right.
you know. So yeah, I think part of that neutrality is like neutralizing the charges that these things have
Yeah,
on
for
us,
sure.
you
Like we
know.
give it so much power.
We do.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
importance.
Importance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The caffeine is really what broke my fast with the reset. Like I lasted like a week and a half, and I was like, I can't be decluttering my house without caffeine.
Right.
And,
Right.
And it just got me. It
Yeah.
got me. Anyway, we don't have to go too deep into that, but
I'm
yeah,
hearing you say that made me want to go inside and get my caffeinated beverage. So that's an interesting layer of it too. I remember a time when someone would talk about a hot day and a cold beer, I'd be like, yeah, let's do that. You know, just get
Yeah.
on that bandwagon.
Right.
So that's
hop
interesting.
on the boat.
Yeah, right. Summertime.
Let's cabrew it.
Right. Have you been cabrewing?
No.
Me either.
Oh.
They say it's really phenomenal.
That sounds pretty fun. I
could
could
be
definitely see that being a vibe.
Yeah.
But one thing that I do want to cap this part of the conversation with, you know, is the idea of leadership versus following. Like, in what context do I feel compelled or inspired to lead the energy?
Right.
Versus when do I
Right.
feel inspired to follow?
Right.
Because a lot of times, and I think that word inspired is actually probably crucial to the energy here,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of times we feel obligated
Yeah.
to do one or the other.
Right.
And that doesn't
Right.
feel great.
Choose a side.
Yeah.
That's not inspiration. Yeah.
Or follow the pack, even when it's, a group of friends and you love all of those individuals, sometimes the energy is like, I don't even want to be doing this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So like, do I choose to follow? Do I choose to lead? And what are the consequences of that? We have to juggle that.
Right.
Is me leading my ass to the car and leaving?
Right. Right.
And separating from the group for a while. That doesn't mean divorcing from the group, but like taking some space,
right.
taking a break,
right.
Yeah. So it's a lot, it's a lot to juggle all the time. And balance has just been really coming back into conversations and huge reminder to me lately. Keep it in balance,
Yeah.
Forgive yourself for doing the dance, forgive yourself for being a human,
Right. Right.
We're here to experience.
Yeah.
We're not here to judge.
Yeah. When I really lean into that witness mode again, I'm like, oh yeah, it's all fine.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
It really is.
It really is.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is easy to forget that.
It is.
It's easy to have been taught forgetfulness and to identify with the habit of being asleep to the witness that is here.
I
always.
Think of the muscle again, like what we're exercising, and like for all these years before our great awakenings, whenever those were, like that muscle has been so strong. So even in this other space where we exist now, and we have this awareness we didn't maybe have all the time or before.
Yeah.
That muscle's still the strongest one.
Right.
The other ones, we're working them.
Yep.
They're getting there.
Exactly.
Which is why we get to have these conversations now, because we're building on the other side.
Right.
So that we can have a balance. Right? Because this one's really muscular.
Exactly.
This one's a little weak, but we're finding the balance.
Totally. And I've just been thinking about, like, how can I set up infrastructure, which is to say, physical reminders in my life to remember the clarity that I come to when I'm having a blissful divine time with strangers at a festival or having a conversation with you right here, right now, outside of my house. But then, like I go into my house and then I become the ghost of who I've been in that context. Because when we erect walls in in an open space on the earth, we're confining energy, and you can replace your filters and your AC as diligently as the rest of them. I'll say them, not us.
It wasn't me.
But, it's still, there's psychic energy that we sort of box in,
Well, I don't think it's sort of. I think it's quite literal.
Yeah. I was tempted to take it into the ghost conversation. I think that's what, like, the experience of seeing ghosts and stuff is. I think that's
They're
like,
boxed.
I think it's an energy.
Interesting.
It's an imprint. Probably not a spirit or a soul that actually spends time living in
like
that.
A whole entity.
It's just it's an energy imprint that the walls have confined.
Interesting.
And if they can't get out, then they're going to keep echoing.
This is a really interesting train of thought that I'm having about whether or not people have experienced those encounters in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like any paranormal, anything I've ever seen or heard about has been in a confined space.
Did you ever see the Blair Witch Project?
I remember very vividly the
camera
down below.
I haven't seen it, but I knew it took place in the woods,
outside.
so I didn't know.
Okay, got it.
But that could be totally fiction. I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm not sure.
That's a good question.
It is.
But it's getting hot, so we should probably wrap this up soon. But would you be down to give a quick overview of like what's led you into the decision of going to Hawaii? And
sure.
How are you feeling about that currently?
Oh, right.
All of those things?
So I guess I would have to say that the normal, let's say normal as just the blanket word, the normal everyday stresses of life got to be too much. Trying to manage motherhood and a stable income and the social expectations of family members and wanting to be social with the people that I felt really connected to in a friendship, family-ship kind of way. Just all of that piling onto itself and really not feeling like I didn't really feel like I existed anymore. Like I was 100% a robot. and feeling all of these obligations that I didn't really feel in alignment with. And that was just to sum it up, the way I felt for a very long time. And then a dear sister friend of mine, Ella, came up, throwing seeds into my face, and she wasn't planting them gently, she was like, hello in there. I see you're suffering.
Yeah.
Look at what I'm doing, and I'm like, whatever. It took me some time, but eventually I came around to the possibility of not having to live within four walls, not having to work a regular steady job, not having to participate in energetic exchanges with people that I didn't align with. I started somehow, magically, can't really point to a reason or a why, except, maybe that one outside influence that was really relentless.
Yeah.
And encouraging me to expand and trust people. Like, she introduced me to the Language of Light group. I feel like that was a really integral part of me going, oh, so there are all these other kinds of people out here that aren't, maybe I'm not miserable, and maybe it's not me, and maybe I'm just in the wrong place, So to collect it.
Shift the environment.
Yeah, shifting environment, yeah. So to collect it in a little box, just not wanting to be absolutely miserable anymore. And exploring the possibilities of what that might look like. In a really large way, I felt for some time that I was following, only in a different way, only in a different direction. And once I came to grips with that reality that someone had planted a seed and I was allowing it to grow, it felt better. I'm allowing this, and this has come to me for reasons,
Yeah. That's good.
So I feel that this path that I'm on now is all about releasing the things that aren't in alignment with who I am and where I want to be. And in that, I'm being flipped upside down. I'm being really challenged to really remind myself what is important to me and why. So I will say that there's a large aspect of the glory of Hawaii, the glory of off-grid living, the glory of the rainbow gathering and the traveling for the summer, giving up all these things.
Yeah.
It definitely has this tinge of running that I had been really not acknowledging. And when we were at Sage Valley and Nora's entire family showed up demanding to see her, it kind of all hit me in this different way. All the things that I've left behind that I felt really didn't resonate with me anymore, they're not things that I can actually give up. Blocking people on my phone, changing my environment, going literally hours away from all the things that really do call for my attention and responsibility, they're not going to go away because I've changed where I am.
Yeah.
So I'm learning about that right now. I'm learning what it looks like to have that middle ground. Because I was on one side of one extreme and feeling really miserable in my life, and then I went to this other extreme and found all this real pure joy, and it's not that I want to take that away from myself, but integrate that and find the middle way. So Hawaii is definitely still happening. I'm really, really grateful to be on the path I'm on, to have bought the tickets and can't look back, and to have this experience, for myself and for Nora, learning so much all the time about what's really important. But then allowing Nora to have both, allowing myself to have both. So officially, Hawaii is temporary. I'm thinking that we're probably going to spend the majority of the winter there, and then we'll come back.
Oh, okay.
I feel really called to Sage Valley.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
That
I
just gave me
spent
chills.
I feel really, 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 really called there. And I had really long and awesome conversations with Kinsey about the vision.
Yeah.
And we walked through all of the land, and she showed me all these spots that are ready for building and all kinds of stuff. So I'm feeling like it's really important right now to find the middle.
Love it.
Yeah.
That feels great.
It does.
Yeah.
It feels really good. Yeah.
Seriously, I just experienced full body chills. Gotta be a good sign.
Yeah, I'm taking it. I like it.
Nice.
So at some point it was definitely I'm giving all this up. I don't want this anymore. I'm doing that instead. But it's not the way.
So what was that initial vision? Was just you guys were going out there. You expecting?
Yeah,
to be
I'm
out
I
there
surrender.
As long as it.
Whatever
lasted,
flows,
Okay, yeah.
Someone I met at Sage Valley, his name is Bruce. He shared his life motto with me. They're not words that I would have chosen, but they're really resonant right now for this process I'm going through. And life is just always is perfect timing. He said that it'll buff out. And I was like, let it roll off my back. And then I started thinking about it, and I looked at him, and he's like, because in this hippy-dippy community vibe, it's always go with the flow. It'll fix itself, and trust and surrender. And there's so much power in that. But buffing takes a little bit of effort, Like, it will be shiny, but let's shine it up,
That's great.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Nice.
So I'm buffing.
Cool.
I'm still following the callings,
Yeah.
but I'm aware that there is a middle ground, and I don't want to be extreme anymore. And I really did for a minute. It's like, F this, F that, I'm out. And it felt, I was packaging it and speaking on it in such a way that felt really enlightening, but I was ignoring this other layer of it that was definitely like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
And I don't want to face this,
Right.
But the truth, it reveals itself. You don't have to work for that. And so the convoy came. So many different things happened at Sage Valley that were like, hey, this is still here. This is still here.
Yeah.
This is still for you.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Yep.
Did I sum that up?
Beautifully. Yeah. I have more that I want to say, but I almost feel like we should just let it do that. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, that episode.
Okay, cool.
Glad we finally got to do this.
Yeah, me too.
Been trying to get you on officially.
I know.
Other than the paint pouring for almost all year.
And we made it.
Yeah.
We made it.